Even though flying isn't used that often, it's still fun to do, and is made even better thanks to the stunning visuals and fantastic music that accompany it. Players control Link's Loftwing by holding the Wii Remote horizontally facing forward and tilting it at different angles to turn, ascend, and descend. In order to board Link's Loftwing, players must dash off the side of a floating island and press down on the D-pad to call his faithful companion. There are a few things odd about this specific boarding mechanic though. For one, players must dash off the edge of an island. They cannot walk off, nor can they merely hop off or fall off. This makes sense in terms of how great it feels to watch Link launch off the side of a landmass miles above the ground and grab onto his giant bird while falling through the sky. But with all of the intuitive thinking the game trains players to use, players may find this a bit confusing. Why is it that Link can apparently only call his bird if he runs off the edge? What if he accidentally falls off the edge? Shouldn't he be able to call his Loftwing to come save his life? Something like this seems like it would be common sense. Another oddity is that, in Skyloft, Link can only board his Loftwing from designated platforms around the island, whereas with any other island in the sky, Link can simply jump from anywhere to call his bird. Again, this makes some sense in that, at the beginning of the game, Link is still a knight in training. He's not as experienced at flying as some of the older knights, so it makes sense that he must still obey the rules of his teachers meant to keep the students safe. However, once you get into the game, Link very clearly becomes more skilled than he previously was, and this is even acknowledged by many of the people that you talk to. Yet, for some reason, he can still only board his Loftwing from those wooden platforms. Likewise, players can only fly during the day because for some reason, Loftwings don't fly at night. At least, not Loftwings of students. If players try to jump off of a diving platform at night, they'll find themselves watching a short cinematic as Link is placed back on the island while a Skyloft Knight lectures you on how you should be more careful and that only trained knights should fly at night. Once again, this makes sense in the beginning of the game, but not so much a few hours in. It's almost as if Nintendo simply didn't want to create nighttime versions of the ground areas or program potentially different enemies that only appear at night. It doesn't make sense, and it just comes off as lazy in a game that isn't lazy everywhere else. All those weird rules aside though, flying is still really fun. But what's even more fun is skydiving. In order to land on the islands of the sky or to go to the regions of the ground, Link does not simply have his Loftwing land there. Oh no, Link doesn't roll like that. He gets there in style, by jumping off of his Loftwing mid-flight and hurtling towards the ground, only to pull out his sailcloth, used as a parachute, at the very last minute. Skydiving, not surprisingly, is motion controlled and is similar to flying. Tilting the Wii Remote will control the angle and speed at which Link falls. If the player holds the remote perfectly horizontal, Link will spread out his body, increasing wind resistance, and slowly fall straight down. If the player tilts the remote side to side, Link will drift to the side. If the player points the remote towards the ground, Link will tuck in his limbs and face the ground, causing him to speed up. Players skydive by either jumping off of an island or by jumping off of Link's Loftwing mid-flight. Before hitting the ground, players can press B to pull out Link's sailcloth. I say can press B because this is hilariously not mandatory. If players feel fiendish, they can simply let Link slam into the ground, resulting in a loud thud, a humorous animation, and a decrease in hearts. That is, if Link falls from really high up. If the players skillfully skim the ground with the Loftwing and jump from a few inches off the ground, Link won't take damage, even if the players decide not to use the sailcloth. However, Skyloft is somewhat of a special case, as are the ground regions. When Link skydives into Skyloft or one of the ground regions, the game will prompt players to pull out the sailcloth before hitting the ground. But even if they don't use it, the game automatically does it for them before Link lands. This is strange because if Link's going to use the sailcloth automatically, why even give the player the option to do so? The only thing that'll happen if the player presses B in these cases is that Link will use the sailcloth a half second or two before the game would have done it automatically. This ends up feeling like a pointless option to give the player, as well as breaking the great feeling of pulling out the life-saving sailcloth at the very last moment. Another peculiarity is when Link dives from or dives into Skyloft, the screen briefly goes white and the game loads either the sky or Skyloft, depending on if the player is leaving or entering. Additionally, players can't really skim the ground of Skyloft like they can on other islands. There are invisible walls surrounding the island that prevent the player from flying too low to Skyloft's ground. The reason for this is likely due to the Wii's technical limitations. It seems that the Wii simply can't load all of the details to the environment and all of the people of Skyloft quickly enough to display them as Link soars over the island. So, in the end, it's an unfortunate yet understandable problem. But it does disrupt the great feeling of flying and skydiving that succeeds on every other island in the sky. It also reveals some of the console's weaknesses that are so well hidden elsewhere, and reminds the players that they're playing a game with weird, unexplained game rules.